One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Everybody they know, they gonna vote for Donald Trump, that's the way it goes. All over America, all over the USA, they voted for Donald Trump, that's what I'm trying to say. Election is over, everyone can see. Donald Trump is now the president of your country. Election is over, everyone can see. Donald Trump is now the president of your country. I want to make America great again.
Woo!
I want to lower the taxes. I want to bring all American business back from overseas back to the USA, baby.
There we go.
Ooh, yeah. Donald Trump is now the president of your country. Election is over. Everybody can see. Donald Trump is now the president of your country. Election is over. Everyone can see. Donald Trump is now the president of your country.
All right, everybody, we've got the interview coming up very soon with President Trump. Let's see when it goes. I had to jump on real quick here. I guess it looks like they're getting right into it.
But first, with a look at the other headlines from Washington, turn to Jackie Heinrich. Jackie?
All right, so they're talking about some other stuff. Gives me a chance to greet you all, as if I haven't seen you in I didn't know, about 30 minutes ago. But in any event, we are here. I had threw down a sandwich real quick, came back, and got this ready. Just to let you know, I know Brett Baier's show goes from 6 to 7. Not really sure how long the interview will last, but that's pretty much going to be the extent of this video. We can talk, take a few comments, but obviously in between those two videos, hold on, let's put this up real quick.
Of Venezuelans under an 18th century wartime law. The justices acted on an emergency appeal from lawyers for Venezuelan men accused of being gang members. The administration says that designation makes them eligible for rapid removal under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The first direct peace talk.
That's all I had to say, huh? That's it. No other information. That's all they're going to leave it there, because there's a whole lot of holes here. A whole lot of stuff that these people have to answer. And one of the ones I brought up at the end of our last show was, what happens? Are they just going to stay in jail? Because the Democrats are going to want them released. But that order, so far as I've been able to review, does not say it gets released. And what's this say here? Breaking news. Wow, SB came back real quick. He's doing an amazing job. I couldn't do this without him. Let's see what the breaking news that SB has just put up here. Drum roll. Oh, yeah, baby. Okay, we have to cover it afterwards. Here comes the interview right now.
Father for the 11th time.
Most importantly.
Tiffany, baby Alexander.
They're a really good couple, great couple, I think. And the baby is perfect. I'll let you know about it in 21 years. But the baby is good, so we're happy about that. I look forward to seeing the baby.
Seeing you with those grandkids. This is a big trip. This is seen, especially in this region, as a major, major success with the interaction between each one of these countries. How do you see it today as you wrap it up?
Well, I always considered it to be a very important region. I know all three leaders, as you could see, very well. In all three cases, I knew them long before I ran for politics, which is sort of something. It makes it a little bit more special. They're great people. The three of them, they're great people. And it's a great region, but it was never treated properly, and it was certainly not treated well by Biden, who didn't know he was alive, frankly, so, you can understand that. But he was not, they didn't treat this group well. And I think they were being, and I guess you know, because you've reported on it, they were being coaxed very strongly by China, because that solves China's fuel problem forever. And it wasn't their preference, but they were on their way. They were going to China, and that was going to be their parent, and that's not happening anymore.
Do you think you've shifted the paradigm on that?
No, I don't think. I know. We are as close. We're closer now to them than ever before. You could see the relationship. You could get a body expert and pay them a lot of money, and they could tell you, no, there's just a relationship that I have with all three that's just, very extraordinary. I was even saying, we're like so friendly. Not a normal situation where you're okay with a leader or whatever. But this is a very important region. This is the energy capital of the world. They have, massive amounts of energy and other things. They've invested wisely. And they're looking to do other things. I guess in Saudi Arabia, they said in another couple of years, there'll be more than 50% other businesses represent more than 50% of the take. And it's pretty amazing what all of them have done.
You have a massive amount of business investment coming back to the U.S.
Right.
And they're still adding it up
Which,
in
by
each
the way,
country.
most importantly, that's why I came here. I didn't come here to say, gee, you guys are rich and you have a lot of oil. They have a lot of money, and I want them to spend the money in the United States. And we set records. There's never been a trip like this by any president or anybody ever before. And I'd ask them, how about doubling it up? Okay. Oh, I should have asked for more, because they said, okay. They're good people, and they love our country. And look, they have great danger because of Iran. That's their primary danger. And that makes them vulnerable. But I don't see them as being vulnerable, because I think we have the greatest military in the world. And we're adding to it now at levels that nobody's ever seen. We're going to build the Iron Dome. We deserve an Iron Dome. See, we call it two names. So I was going to call it the Iron Dome because that's the name everyone has heard of for years. But to me, it was old-fashioned. So we changed it recently to the Golden Dome, the beautiful Golden Dome. And
matches
Ronald
the golden
Reagan,
age.
Ronald Reagan wanted that many years ago, and he was right, except you didn't have anywhere near the technology.
I want to talk about Israel. I mean, the first trip in the first administration, when you came over to the Middle East, you did do a stop in Israel on the way back. Not doing it this time. Obviously, the Israel-Hamas and what's happening in Gaza is driving a lot. How do you see that? Are you frustrated at all with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No, look, he's got a tough situation. You have to remember there was an October 7th that everyone forgets. It was one of the most violent days in the history of the world, not the Middle East, the world, when you look at the tapes. And the tapes are there for everyone to see. So he has that problem. That problem should have never happened. Now, if I were president, that problem wouldn't have happened because Iran had no money. They were stone cold broke, and they weren't giving money to Hamas. In fact, I remember in your show, like a year before that, you were saying, there's no money for Hezbollah, Hamas. There's like 28 different groups. The Houthis. But they have 28 groups that we know of, and none of them. They were all breaking up because there was no money. And then Biden came along, he took off all the sanctions on Iran. I mean, I put sanctions that were so strong. Anybody that did business with Iran could not do business with the United States. So everybody took a pass, including China. Biden came in, he just let everyone go by, and they became, they have over $300 billion today.
So how do you get to a solution there?
Oh, we'll get 100%.
You think so?
Well, we're going to have a solution one way or the other. It's either going to be violent or not violent. And I far prefer nonviolent. I know so many Iranians from New York, from Washington, from different places. These are great people. You have to view them as people. And I don't want it to be a violent thing, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
But you said it was close the other day. You said it was close to a deal.
I think it's close.
So does that mean that they're going to enrich at any level, like a civilian level?
No, I think they want to make a deal. You say to yourself, they have massive oil, by the way. They have oil that lasts for 300 years. They have a lot of oil. People don't realize they're one of the biggest in the world. And it's very good oil, meaning it's pure, perfect stuff. They don't have to spend a fortune on gases and energy in order to melt the rock and everything. They have pure, unadulterated, good oil. And you say, why does somebody that has that kind of oil, other than being politically correct, but when you have unlimited amounts of oil and gas, why are you putting up, why do you need civil nuclear? I just don't see it.
But I mean, are you going to call for it all?
And I think nuclear is fine. I think nuclear is fine for civil if you have a country with no oil. But if you're sitting on one of the largest piles of oil in the world, why are you talking about putting up nuclear civil? I call it nuclear civil.
And so Bibi Netanyahu is not convinced that a deal would be good for the region. Is that fair to say?
I think I can say that Bibi, he's an angry man. And he should be because of October 7th. And he's been hurt badly by that. But in another way, he's been sort of helped because I think he's fought hard and bravely.
And you think the Israel-Hamas, the situation in Gaza is going to come to an end soon?
Gaza's a nasty place. It's been that way for years. I think it should become a free zone. Freedom. I call it a freedom zone. It should become a freedom zone. It doesn't work. Every 10 years, they go back. They have Hamas. They have everybody's being killed all over the place. I mean, you ever see? You talk about crime stats. It's a nasty place.
Are these people, these countries that you were just visiting, are they going to have to be a part of the solution?
Well, they would be. They would be. I spoke to all three of them. They would absolutely be. I mean, they're really rich and really, really, really even more than rich. They're good people, and they would help. And so money's not even the problem.
And you got to get countries to say yes. Take them.
Look, these are people that want to be in the Middle East. They really want to be in the Middle East. They love the Middle East. I see that. There's a spirit for the Middle East. They didn't have to go to Sweden, Germany, these different countries. They could have been home in the Middle East if somebody had the brains to build beautiful communities. 1.9 million is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people, relatively.
You had a couple of foreign policy successes even right before this trip. You picked up the phone and called 2 nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, and you got them to step back from the brink. That was a success as you got on the plane heading over here.
A bigger success than I'll ever be given credit for. Those are major nuclear powers. Those are not like a little bit. And they were angry. And the next phase was probably, did you see where it was tit for tat. And it was getting deeper and more missiles. Everyone was stronger. To a point where the next one's going to be, the N-word. You know what the N-word is, right?
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I figured you'd want to clean that up. No, it's the N word. That's a very nasty word, right? In a lot of ways. The N word used in a nuclear sense, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I think they were very close. The hatred was great. And I said, we're going to talk about trade. We're going to do a lot of trade. Don't forget, Iran wants to make a deal with us badly for a lot of reasons. But when you look at India, they are calling, Iran wants to trade with us, okay, if you can believe that. And I'm okay with it. I'm using trade to settle scores and to make peace. But I've told Iran, we make a deal, you're going to be very happy. But more than anything, I've told Iran very simply, because I heard somebody making my case last night on television. I didn't like it, because they were saying, there's plenty of time. There's not plenty of time. There's not plenty of time.
You feel urgency.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and eventually they'll have a nuclear weapon, and then the discussion becomes a much different one. But in the case of India, India wants, they're one of the highest taxed or tariff nations in the world. They make it almost impossible to do business. Do you know that they're willing to cut 100% of their tariffs for the United States because of what I did? Is that deal coming soon? Yeah, that'll come soon. I'm in no rush. Look, everybody wants to make a deal with us.
So South Korea.
South Korea wants to make a deal with us, everybody. But Japan. I'm not going to make deals with everybody. I'm just going to set the limit. I'll make some deals. And then I'm just going to, because you can't meet with that many people. I've got 150 countries that want to make deals. You have a lot of countries.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit-down
they were.
With the Treasury Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break. They would have broken apart. Our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th. Because our country has spirit again.
The other foreign policy shift was this embrace of Syria. You met with the Syrian president, who has a shady past of being tied to Al-Qaeda and the al-Nusra Front in Syria, but you see promise there.
Well, before I talk about that, just one word.
Yeah.
Also Pakistan. Great conversations with Pakistan. We can't forget them. And because it does take two to tango. And with India, I felt very certain. And with Pakistan, I also talked about trade. Oh, they would love to trade. They would love to trade. They're brilliant people. They make incredible products. And we don't do much trading with them. And yet I have a good relationship with a lot of people that you wouldn't believe. But I stopped that war. That was going to be a nuclear war, I think, or close. Very close. You were right there.
Yeah.
And now everyone's happy. In fact, I told my people, call them up. Let's start trading immediately, because I'm a man of my word. Now when you get to Syria, so I did something with Syria because the future king, and you have a wonderful king right now. He's an older man. He's also a friend of mine. And he's 100% sharp. He's great. And he's got a great son, the Crown Prince. And he has actually many titles. He's Prime Minister, he's Crown Prince. And he's doing a great job running it. But he called me and he spoke to me. And he said, could you do me a favor? Could you, and do the world a favor, could you take the sanctions off Syria? Because the only way they're going to have a chance, the sanctions are crippling, really biting. Well, that's what I did with Iran. And they came to a point where they were bust. Could you take the sanctions off? I hadn't thought about it much. And he said it in a way that was, he's got a great heart. He said, they can't make it with those sanctions. I said, let's give them a chance. I met the leader. I met the new leader. And handsome guy, by the way. Young, handsome. And I said, you have quite a past. Got a tough past. But when you think about it, are you going to put a choir boy in that position? I don't think so. It's going to be a little bit tough. It's a tough part of the world. So you're willing
to give him a shot?
The word they say, it's a nasty neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I thought he was really, I thought he was terrific. He was so thankful about the sanctions because he knew he's not going to be able to bust through.
So maybe it'll be a turn there. We'll see.
I think he has a real chance. He's a strong guy. he's done some pretty tough things.
A lot of the coverage here was about your speech in Saudi Arabia and some of those things that you said about trusting these countries to make their own decisions, and we're not trying to make it a mirror image of ourselves. You know, big foreign policy
we
thoughts.
have our own problems.
Yeah.
You know?
But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar Boeing jet. And I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just telling you
we
back
can talk
home.
about it again. You ready?
Not briefly.
You ready?
No, I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers. Yeah.
They're giving it to the Defense Department.
To be very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones because Boeing is very late. Boeing is sadly...
Did you talk to the CEO while you were...
I did. I said, let's get, you know, in the meantime, I got them 160 planes to build. I said, how about the 2 that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. You know, it's not like building a 747 normal.
I mean, we could put people on the moon before
but let me tell you,
the Boeing Air Force One is
People
done.
knew I was angry at Boeing. A lot of people know. These people know. They're very smart down here. And they suggested if we can do anything at all to help. Because we have 40-year-old planes right now. You know, our Air Force One is actually 2 planes. It's 747s. It's
I don't think people know that. 40 years. It's 4 decades old, the current Air Force One.
They're 40 years old. They're more than that. I think they're 42 now. I've been saying 40 for 2 years. They're 42. We shouldn't have a 42-year-old plane. And you know what? There's nothing unsafe about it. In many cases, they're just as safe or more safe. They're heavier. You know, they throw out a lot more for the environmentalists out there to turn them. They throw out a little more than a modern engine would throw out. But they're, you know, they're good, but they're 42 years old. And when we landed, I saw the other day, when we landed, I was parked right next, we parked right next to the 747 of Qatar. And we parked next, there was another 747, 2 or 3 of them, which the Arab world has. And when you look at a new 747 and you look at a plane that's 42 years old, not even the same plane, the other ones are bigger and sleeker and sharper, and it doesn't look right. We have a problem with Boeing. Now, again, it's a very complex plane. It's a much different plane than a normal plane would be. Okay. And they're doing a great job. They're coming back, and they're coming back strong. But I'm angry about them for the 2 planes. They should be able to knock them off in no time, and it's, you know, they're not able to do that. And he said, great gentleman, Tamim, he said, I would like to help if you want. I said, how can you help? Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, you have been, and he doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there.
Base.
Look, right next to Iran, and he is right next to, he's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here, but that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to. And he said, your country has been very good to us. I would love to do something to help with this situation you have with Air Force One. I said, that's nice. What do you suggest? And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force for whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. You know, it's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned.
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they won't want it. Plus, they'll have the other 2 planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you.
I asked the Prime Minister about it specifically. And he said, you know, he didn't understand the reaction back home. And, you know, he made that clear.
I think he was insulted, actually. He made a gift to help somebody that has helped them. It was so nice as a gesture. And you know, the people here, to show you how it's crazy, they'd like me to pay $1 billion. I'd rather pay $1 billion and get 10 fighter jets instead of giving $1 billion when it's not necessary.
Mr. President, if you'll stand by, thank you. We'll continue with more from the President of the United States in Abu Dhabi after the break.
All right, so we'll go back to Brett as he gets to the Comey thing. Got a lot of news to talk to you about. Not a lot I can get to in 30 seconds here, but there seems to be some conflicting information with people saying that Comey has already been released. Oh, in case you don't know, the Secret Service, I won't use the words took him into custody, but they took him to the Secret Service office in Washington, D.C. and questioned him. And more than likely, if he hasn't been released, he's probably going to get released with no charges filed. They did the same thing, at least they visited the Krasenstein guy, and they questioned him. No charges filed. So, we are going to probably see, and you can probably just brace yourself for it, we're probably going to see that James Comey will not face any charges for what he's done. It is what it is. I'm done standing up for our Department of Justice. I'm done standing up for the FBI. It is what it is. I'm looking to see if it's been confirmed that he's been released. I don't see it as of yet. It says he has met with, I'm seeing has as in past tense, but I do not see anything in regards to charges. It says he was taken to the Secret Service office, and that's about it. So don't hold your breath. It doesn't look like he's going to face any actual charges. It is what it is. So if you were here earlier, I think our show, let me just check because this will be very interesting. I think our show earlier today, yeah, it was 4 hours and 12 minutes. 4 hours. Didn't think I was going to go 4 hours on a podcast show. So there won't be an extended version tonight. I'm going to take it easy. We're going to do this interview. Got a couple posts I want to show you, real important posts. And it won't be a jump over to Rumble. We're just going to have the regular after party if you guys just want to hang out for a bit. But I didn't have time to really have dinner or anything yet and want to spend some time with the wife. My fault. I didn't know I was going to go 4 hours. But I got some stuff to tell you about Jonathan Turley as he went a little bit further in depth about the order from SCOTUS. 7-2, they don't want President Trump basically deporting the aliens on the Aliens Enemies Act. But the way it's worded, and even I did catch that, they called them detainees. And in the fact that they call them detainees means they're detained. I didn't see anything in there. I haven't heard anyone talk about it, but there doesn't seem to be anything in there that says they need to be released. So they would still remain detainees. I think it'll be very hard for any of the courts to force President Trump or Tom Homan to release any of these people. So what I'm looking at is this probably is going to become something where they just stack them up in jail. And just round them up and stack them up in jail. And, you know, there's going to be some judge that says you have to release them. They're going to test these lower courts, but I don't know how that's going to end up either. In fact, I don't know if Trump's going to stop. We may be at the Andrew Jackson moment. Don't know, but we'll find out soon enough. We will definitely find out soon enough. I wonder if Brett's got enough. Well, Brett didn't know this order was going to come out when they filmed this, but I'd love to know if he talks to him and ask him what he will do if the Supreme Court rules against him. They are back.
Putin doesn't go to Turkey.
Yeah.
You thought about going if he was going.
Well, I had a problem. I mean, I consider the Middle East very important. And I had a problem because Thursday I was going to be UAE, okay, and which is where I am now. We're going to be leaving in a few hours and have another couple of stops. It's a pretty grueling schedule. A lot of people said, how the hell do you do it?
By the way, how the hell do you do it?
I don't know. I think it's genetics. It's good genetics. I had a father who was very strong, and I had a mother who was very strong. They lived to ripe old ages, and they were great people. And it's meeting after meeting. And not only that, it's speech after speech. It's not like big ones. Like last night, if you look, he got up and made a beautiful speech. Mohammed, he got up and made a beautiful speech. I wasn't told I even had a speech to make. So I had to make a speech off the cuff. Do you think Biden could do that? I don't think so. Actually, it was a pretty good speech. I looked at it. It was pretty good. I didn't know I was doing it. So, but, you know, it's meeting after meeting with the highest level people. These are great people. They love us again. They were not feeling love at all. They were going to China. They're not going to China anymore.
You were going to go to Turkey. Putin doesn't show. Zelensky shows.
I was never scheduled to go.
No, you weren't scheduled, but you were talking about maybe you would go if it all came together.
But I tell you what,
so what do you
I
think?
would not have wanted to disappoint UAE because that was my
big
stop.
deal.
And if I went to Turkey, I couldn't go here, and it would have been. It would have been very hard for me to say I'm not doing it.
On the substance, what do you think's going through Putin's mind? You said get to the table. You said stop bombing. He hasn't stopped bombing. He's not at the table. And what do you think is happening?
Well, he is at the table, and he wanted this meeting. And I always felt there can't be a meeting without me because I don't think a deal is going to get through. There's a lot of hatred on both sides. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I think we'll make a deal. We have to get together, and I think we'll probably schedule it because I'm tired of having other people go and meet and everything else. And with that being said, I think Steve Witkoff has done an incredible job. But it's a very tough job, and it's a job that, because of position, that I think I'm the only one that's going to be able to do that one. And I think we'll do it fast, too. I think Putin is tired of this whole thing. He's not looking good, and he wants to look good. Don't forget, this was supposed to end in 1 week. And if he didn't get stuck in the mud with his army tanks all over the place, they would have been in Kiev in about 5 hours. And who gave the javelins? Do you remember who gave the javelins? Was it Barack Hussein Obama? No, it was Donald Trump gave the javelins.
Do you think your perception of it has changed? Is Putin now the obstacle to peace in your mind?
Look, I had a real rough session with Zelensky because I didn't like what he said. And he was not making it easy. And I always said he doesn't have the cards. And he doesn't have the cards. And, I'm being honest. He doesn't have the cards. You're dealing with a massive army, and you're dealing with somebody that's brave, that had great equipment.
But I haven't seen you get personal. On True Social, you said, Vladimir, stop. He hasn't stopped. And you had once said that maybe you need to look at other things like sanctions or banking.
Okay, so
because maybe they need to be pressured in a different way.
And I'll be doing that if
do you think that it's
I don't want to see 5,000 people. Outside of the money, which is a big deal, but the money is the money. The money we can make up. I can make up the money on one trip like this. Okay, I mean, think of it. This trip, I made 12 times the money that we're talking about. I made that money in a few days. I've always been good with money.
It's not about the money, it's about pressuring Putin, right? I mean,
No, but I've always been good with money. I make money. I made in 4 days, I made 12 times what we spent in Ukraine. So the money is the money. What bothered me, I hated to see the way it was, pissed away. I hated to see that checks were sent for $60 billion. Every time Zelensky, I think he's the greatest salesman in the world, far better than me. Zelensky, he comes to Washington, he walks out with $100 billion every time he came, $100 billion, $100 billion. Now his abilities were shrinking because the last time I only got $60 billion. But Congress is very upset about it. They're saying, where is all this money going?
But I'm focused on
And we
Putin.
send checks. We don't only send we send just checks. We send just cash. Where is it? The Europeans have been very badly hurt by this. They spent a lot of money also. They spent $100 billion. We spent $350. It shouldn't be that. It should have been the other way around. But
are you going to put the
they have
screws
not
to
been
Putin?
treated. They have not been treated right by anybody. This is a war that they're, spending a lot of money on. We've been treated worse than them because we had a very stupid person as a president. And if I can solve that problem, and it's a bad problem, because I will tell you, Putin, it was the apple of his eye. He never would have done it if I were president. Never, ever would have done it. 100%. I think most people, actually even Democrats say that it wouldn't have happened. But we inherited a mess, okay? I think it's going to get solved. But you know that Putin wanted the whole thing. He didn't want a piece. He didn't want a chunk. He wanted the whole thing. Somebody said, well, what do we get out of it in terms of, let's say, Ukraine?
Right.
You know what they get out of it? A large portion of the country.
It's just, Senator Lindsey Graham has 73 co-sponsors on this bill to sanction Russian oil and anybody who buys Russian oil. He's making the pitch for the bill saying, why should China get the benefit of cheap oil from Russia as Putin continues the war? At some point, there has to be leverage on Putin. And I assume that you've talked about that.
Nobody uses leverage better than me. Look what I did to Iran. Look
so
what I
it's
did.
Changing.
It's not changing. I always had that. I will use that if I have to. I'd rather not use that. By the way, that's a big deal. I just put it on Venezuela. It's secondary sanctions, it's called. And I just did it with Venezuela.
And you could do it with Iran, too.
I just did it with Iran. It's basically, if you buy oil from Iran, you can't do business with the United States. And you see the ships just leaving that port. You know, in Venezuela, it was amazing.
So why not do it with Russia?
You had to see well, I will if I do. Honestly, I will. If we're not going to make a deal, we're going to see whether or not this is Turkey time. You know, this is now we're talking Turkey, and we'll see what happens. That would be crushing for Russia because they're having a hard time now with the economy. Oil prices are low. You know,
it would change the dynamic.
Okay, so but he's incompetent. He doesn't want to see the war. Because, you know, everything he said was wrong. The way he talked about Putin, the way he said the threats, I mean, it's just wrong. But here's what was really wrong. He let oil go from $65 to $100 a barrel. Putin was making a fortune. Now I have oil down, so nobody's making a fortune anymore. And it's going to go down further. Because I'm baby drilled, you know. He closed up everything, and then he opened it. You know what people don't realize? They said, oh, no, he closed it up, and it drove oil through the roof. And then he said, go back to Trump, go back to Trump. In other words, go back to what I was doing. And he didn't, but they did to a large extent. He didn't go all the way. And I would have been double that by that time. But he didn't go all the way. And what happened, he forced the prices up, the oil prices up. And Putin made a fortune during that period of time.
Yeah. Did you see this thing with the former FBI director, James Comey?
I did. I just saw it on the news.
You know, he puts up this post showing 8647 in the sand, saying cool shell formation on a beach walk. Your director of national intelligence was asked about it last night, and she said this.
Whatever James Comey intent, he and people like him need to be held to account according to the law, which is something that he claims to have given his life for and stands by the rule of law. Fantastic. The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do.
Do you?
So I saw that this morning. You know, there's a big time gap. And he knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country has become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. I have Cash, I have Pam, I have great people. And I'm going to let them, because if I tell you something, they'll say, oh, I'm not going to get involved. But I will say this, I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision. But he knew exactly what it said.
It's a dangerous time. I see security around here. It's very tight. You're in the Middle East. You've had 2 assassination attempts. One, obviously, where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Cash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job. I was given an explanation early on, sort of a little bit pre them. And I thought it was strange. The one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay. I have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. I call that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. It's like, that's all I do. And I had to, why does somebody have 18? Another one, the first one from Butler, he had 3 apps, very unusual apps, and 2 of them were foreign apps. And then he ends up with a white shoe lawyer, meaning a super lawyer from Pittsburgh, the big city. And they live outside of Butler in a little place. Where did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
Well, you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. We have deep-seated craziness in this country. And I'm relying on my people. And so far they're good. But so far and in this case it's Secret Service, they tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
Yeah.
I get a little throbbing feeling.
Well, if you find out, we'd love to know. We continue to ask.
I know.
And a lot of people ask us.
It's a little bit strange. We have incredible people in there now, so can't blame that.
You've been very generous with your time. I'll just wrap it up with this. This is, in the minds of Democrats, Republicans, a very successful trip, big picture. Because it's this way, do you want to do more foreign policy trips? Do you want to go talk to China's Xi Jinping? I mean, you're a force of personality as far as getting things done on a business front. Do you think that that's the model that you're going to have going forward?
Yeah. So, well, it's a very hard model. It's a very taxing model. When you do this. So when you say, is it fun?
Yeah.
Now, I did say I was standing next to all 3 of them over the last few days, and with tremendous fanfare and everyone going crazy and everything else. It's at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Honestly, nobody's ever. I'm getting calls back in the United States. We've never seen anything like this. It's so good for our country, so I'll do it again, and I'll do it. And I would certainly China where it's important. That's important in a different way. This was very important to keep in our fold. It's just they're in our fold. They are back loving the United States again. That was a full embrace, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. I mean, seriously, I asked, have you ever done this before? Last night, 2 nights ago, I said, have you ever done anything for? No. Would you? No. Not even close. With the hundreds of camels and the horses and this, it was beautiful. I mean, all three. If you said which was the best, I couldn't tell you, and they were different. They were all at the top level. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It was an honor. But that really, to me, it showed love. It showed, there's a love. It's almost like they were shut out for a long time, just shut out and treated horribly, and they shouldn't have been. And all of a sudden, they were allowed back in, and they give you an embrace that's 20 times what it perhaps should be. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to see. So we're in great shape. The Middle East is great. Now, we have one problem in the Middle East, Iran, and I'll get that problem solved. It's going to get solved one way or the other.
Hamas and Israel, that's eventually going to get solved.
That's a big problem. I think Iran is right now the big problem. That's also a problem. Hamas is big, and we want to take care of the people. Look, people are starving. You see what's going on right now. People are starving. One of the things that one of the 3 great leaders that I saw 2 nights ago said to me, please help the people, the Palestinians. I said, other than the obvious, what do you mean by that? He said, they're starving. And he meant it with his heart. They're starving. So I've already started working on that. It's a deep problem, but we'll get it solved. And a very immediate and a very big problem is, I'm so proud of what we were able to do with India and with Pakistan. Well, it's a potential problem like that we have here. I'll get it solved, and one way or the other I'll get it solved. It's either going to be done nicely or it's going to be done violently. And I 99.9% want to do it nicely if we can.
Well, Mr. President, we appreciate the time. Safe travels home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brett. Good job.
With that, we wrap up our trip here in the Middle East. We'll be heading home. I'll be back.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming back on a short notice and listening to that interview. Brett Baier, he seemed kind of, argumentative with President Trump. Didn't need to be, but that's how some of these people are because they hate President Trump. He couldn't even disguise it. So I saw a couple people in the chat were asking a couple questions about President Trump's schedule. So I figured I would pull it up so you guys could see it. Here is his schedule for the rest of the evening. He is obviously in the air right now. Notice here it goes from 2:45 to 9 p.m. Let me just see if I can blow this up a little bit so you guys can see it better. All right. It goes from 2:45 to 9 p.m. because I guess this is where it switches over and he will be on East Coast time. So he's due, for some reason, it's interesting, the White House reporters have been called to the White House for 9 o'clock tonight. President arrives at Joint Base Andrews. Then he goes from Joint Base Andrews to the White House, and then he arrives at the White House at 10:40 p.m. So he should be back in about 4 hours. He will be at the White House. He lands, but it's interesting. This got stuck in here that they're. I wish I could talk to Monica or somebody and find out why they stuck that in there. That 9 o'clock, they're being called to the White House. Interesting, which means you didn't see a lid that they stopped it. So he's en route. He's traveling. And we shall see what happens at 10:45. Obviously, I won't be covering it. I'll be in bed probably because I'm exhausted. I'm not, like Brett said, I don't know how he does it. So I got a couple things I want to show you before we move forward. First and foremost, this was the #1 trend on Twitter. And it's very interesting that the #1 trend on Twitter was suspend habeas corpus. And if you put this in, everybody is talking about suspend habeas corpus, which I find very interesting because it's mostly people saying it's time. It's time to suspend habeas corpus. This one here, time to suspend habeas corpus and bypass the judiciary completely. And when the SCOTUS rules against him on that, Trump can do what Lincoln did and ignore the courts and put national security above it all and prioritize protecting Americans. People are ready for it. People are ready for it. So the question is, are you? Because if President Trump comes back and in sometime in the very short near future decides that he's going to suspend habeas corpus, all hell is going to break loose. The media, it'll be 24/7 hate Trump. The Democrats will be doing everything possible to, including probably doing what they did in Butler. It will be madness. So the thing with it is everyone's talking about it. Are you ready for it? It's no longer a concept. It is becoming the possibility of reality. And so if it's a possibility that could happen, are you prepared? I know what we're doing tomorrow. Robin and I are going over to the range and oiling up the pew-pew. Not that I think we'd have problems in Boca, but you know what I mean. Oh, I just noticed the second highest trend on Twitter, X. The number 2 trend is Andrew Jackson. Oh, that's me. But everyone's talking about Andrew Jackson. So to let you know what was attributed to Andrew Jackson, the Supreme Court had made a decision against Andrew Jackson back in 1832. And the Supreme Court, the head justice was named John Marshall. And it's a very interesting quote that was attributed to Andrew Jackson. And that quote was, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." And for those of you who don't know, the Supreme Court has zero enforcement capabilities. They can't do anything. They don't control the marshals. They don't control the FBI. They don't control Secret Service. They don't control local sheriff departments. They don't control police. And they definitely don't control the military. The president does, in terms of the federal stuff. So there's nothing they can do if Trump says, go pound sand. That's where we are at this point. Whether or not he's going to pull the trigger and say, well, if I got to save the country, I got to save the country. Do it. I don't think we've been here in quite some time. Like maybe even 1800s. We are on the precipice of something that you need to be mentally prepared for and physically prepared for, and your home prepared for it, depending on where you live. Things could get crazy. Oh, am I a conspiracy theorist? No. I just know what people are talking about. I know he put him on his desk. I know he sits under a portrait of Andrew Jackson. I feel he's been putting the breadcrumbs out there the entire time for people to look at. I wanted to show you this. He wrote this, or tweeted, or True Social, whatever you want to say, at 5:20. The Supreme Court won't allow us to get criminals out of our country. I have felt for quite some time that he's dropping these breadcrumbs and letting people know, well, what would you do at this point? These are criminals. He followed it up with a rather long one. This one was at 6. So understand, this one here he put out, as you can see the time, 5:20. And then 40 minutes later, he dropped this one at 6 p.m. Look at this. The Supreme Court has just ruled that the worst, I can't say the word, people on earth, even those who are mentally insane, who came into our country the bad way, are not allowed to be forced out without going through a long, protracted, and expensive legal process. One that will take possibly many years for each person. And one that will allow these people to commit many more crimes before they even see the inside of a courthouse. The result of this decision will let more criminals pour into our country, doing great harm to our cherished American public. It will also encourage other criminals to come into the country as well, wreaking havoc and bedlam wherever they go. The Supreme Court of the United States, and this is where I started really paying some attention. The Supreme Court of the United States is not allowing me to do what I was elected to do. Sleepy Joe Biden allowed millions into our country without any due process, but in order to get them out, we have to go through a long, extended process. In any event, thank you, Justice Alito and Justice Thomas, for attempting to protect our country. I'm a wordsmith. I focus in on attempting to protect our country. This is a bad and dangerous day for America. What's the number one job of the President of the United States? Number one. It's not making laws. The number one job for the President is to protect America against enemies foreign and domestic. Is it any coincidence that he's talking about protection of our country and he's letting these people know they're some of the worst people ever and they're going to be here. Smell it. It smells like it's time. I know a lot of people I've gotten text, Barry, why do you keep saying this? It's never going to happen. Really? Really? The reason why people are talking about the suspension of habeas and the reason why people are talking about Andrew Jackson is because they know what has been talked about. Remember, it's not me. He actually said, in his own words, he said, Stephen Miller, it's under consideration. Oh, we got something. I might have to play this real quick. Hold on. I didn't plan on staying that long tonight, but oh boy. Okay, so you guys are like, Barry, what the hell are you talking about? What's going on? So a partial video. SV just sent me a partial video of Joe Biden and the interview with Robert Hur. Remember Robert Hur? Robert Hur was the one who said this guy was so basket case, we couldn't even arrest him. We couldn't even bring him in. So we're going to listen to this. It's 4 minutes. I guess we can make up our own mind how bad it is, but I can see people going, yeah, we survived a miracle as a country. Let's play this and listen in.
So during this time when you were living in Chambers Road and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer booster shot or your book, where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. That's not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. If I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, what month did Bo die? May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, in January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in,
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay, yeah. Correct. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and this is personal. The genesis of the book and the title, Promise Me Dad, was I know you're all close with your sons and daughters, but Bo was like my right arm, and that was my left. These guys were a year and a day apart, and they could finish each other's sentences. And Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway, do you remember? There was pressure, not pressure. Bo knew how much I adored him. And this sounds, maybe this sounds so, everybody knew how close we were. There was not anybody in the world who wondered whether or not, anyway. And so.
Sir, I'm wondering if this is a good time to take a break. Briefly.
No, let me just keep going to get it done.
Yeah, it would have been a good time to take a break permanently. Why is this coming out now? May of 2025, 5 months after President Trump, 4 months after President Trump has been elected. Now you want us to hear that this guy was completely bat poop out of it. Democrats, the media probably won't even talk about it. How many lies have to be exposed by the Biden administration for things to completely, for people to realize? You hate Trump so bad, you don't care that you... Who was running the country? That guy could not have been running the country. There is no possible way that man was making any decisions about what he was going to eat in a half an hour. Oh my gosh. What is he talking about? Yeah, can you imagine sitting there? You're sitting there as he's having this conversation, and you're probably looking at around the room, and even the guy who was asking the questions, the special counsel, is probably looking at his attorney going, "Are you serious? This is the President of the United States?" And I just want to know, why did that not get out? Well, obviously it wasn't going to get out until Pam Bondi became Attorney General. There was no way Merrick Garland was going to let that get out. No possible way. But you can bet your sweet pippy, if President Trump was president at that time, somehow it would have leaked. But it stayed. Everything we're finding out, the laptop, this was a complete scam on the American people. Complete scam. Wow. I think Biden's loss affected his mental capacity back then. It's sad. Yeah, and that wasn't really that long ago. It wasn't that long ago at all. Oh, man. OMG is right. Yeah, anyway. Anyway. Wow. Wow. Anyone wonder why Garland refused to release this? Who's got the first round with Comey tonight? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that's another reason that Bird Dog, you're absolutely right. Obviously, they want to discredit him since he's been trying to be more in the public eye. So somebody put the hit out on him. Somebody said, take this guy out forever and put him out to pasture. You're absolutely right. They don't want him running again. They don't want him even near office. But can you imagine that people are paying him money to speak? That's got to be money laundering. And yeah, that dude had the nuclear codes, and that's happened. All right, so enough about Biden. He's old news. We got lied to. We were scammed. You knew it. I knew it. And Democrats just don't care. All right, so back to President Trump. As I said, the number one trend right now, there's a third one has come up, the third trend that has now populated. Just to give you an idea, Andrew Jackson suspend habeas, and now the next trend is civil war. People have had it. They know what's happening. At this point, take your side. I mean, I'm scrolling through this thing right now, and it's bad. It's bad. Charlie Kirk posted this. President Trump sounds off about the case being heard before SCOTUS, talking about the civil war of the Aliens Enemy Act and birthright citizenship. This is going to get really bad, really bad. So let me just take, before I get out of here, I haven't been looking more to see if anything about Comey. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be charged. I doubt anything's going to happen with him. I still haven't heard anything about the people in New Jersey that Alina Habba was going to basically arrest them. Nothing yet. It's Friday at 7 p.m. and so we don't have any arrest there either. So nothing's happening. And President Trump's flying, so it tells me that tomorrow is probably going to be a big day, even though it's Saturday. Stephen Miller posted this. The courts are sabotaging democracy. And he posted a poll that was posted from before. 67% of people says they wanted immigrants deported. 67%. That's overwhelming. It crosses lines. And at this point, the courts are stopping it from actually happening. We're in a position now where I don't think we've been ever. It's worse than Andrew Jackson. Shipwreck crew, an attorney. Now, in fact, I think he used to work for the Department of Justice. What's Shipwreck crew? 22 years as a federal prosecutor. He represented 91 January 6th clients. He says, now we know what SCOTUS has been doing since its procedurally irregular stay order entered on Good Friday. It's been wrestling behind the scenes with the question of due process and notice under the AEA removal. Today we get a 9-page order and a 2-page concurrence from Kavanaugh, yet a 14-page dissent from Alito, joined by Thomas. Samuel Alito is prolific. Reading now, quite interestingly, the Kavanaugh concurrence calls for doing away with all the lower court proceedings, moving the AEA issues immediately before the court now, with expedited briefing. No one's going to tell you that. That's interesting. He wants to move it even faster. They don't. That's very, very interesting. Very interesting in that regard. Did not know that. SV has 2 more things he's popped here. Let's see. Ashley has one, and SV has another. Ashley, I can't play that. Tom Homan's talking about something that happened. Actually, I can let you guys read it, but I can't talk about it. Not here. And I definitely can't play the video, but I want you to read this. Tom Homan describes a child who was just rescued. We just found a child 2 days ago. 14-year-old little girl living with 2 of them. We found her. She's pregnant. She was forced into what you can see on the screen. We're taking care of her both physically and mentally. Despite what the media says, we are not heartless. We care about these kids. I'm a father. This is happening every day. We're going to put an end to it. Everything we can do. And like Gunther says, why are 0 legacy media outlets even featuring this story? They don't want people to know. They don't want people. They don't even talk about what's really happening. Never mind that a 14-year-old little girl is basically somebody's plaything. Man, that's just awful. And Ian Yeager has confirmed it. Thank you, SV. James Comey is not arrested after meeting with the Secret Service. Y'all can take that as you want. No comment. People get mad when we talk about that triumvirate of Cash and Bongino and Bondi, but he walked. He completely walked. We're going to get something done. I don't know. Trump's going to have to do it. That's the only way it's going to happen. Okay, so you know at this point about what happened with the SCOTUS. And I want to show you something. This is from Jonathan Turley. I think Jonathan Turley is pretty much a straight shooter. He's a constitutional law professor. He's on Fox a lot from George Washington University. This is what he said. Hope he doesn't go too deep into legalese, but let's listen to what he said. Not listen, but read. The Supreme Court delivered a blow to the Trump administration in blocking deportations under the AEA. However, the court only did so based on the lack of notice. It did not rule on the legality of the use of the AEA, which is strange to me because if it doesn't say what kind of notice in the actual law, how can you now insert notice? That's my question. It says, the court expressly stated, to be clear, we decide today only that the detainees are entitled to more notice than was given on April 18th, but of course then they punted and didn't say what that notice is. That still leaves too much to be decided, including what notice is required. It's not optimal for this court, far removed from the circumstances of the ground, to determine in the first instance the precise process necessary to satisfy the Constitution. We remand the case to the Fifth Circuit for that purpose. So understand what they did. We think you should be, people have to have notice. Okay. How long? Oh, you don't know. Well, send it back to them. Just going to play with this tennis ball. You guys work it out. Then come back and tell us afterwards. That's literally what the Supreme Court did today. Both the legality of using the act and the required notice remain undecided beyond the fact that 24 hours is clearly not enough. The court is pumping the brakes as a warning to the administration that it must give these individuals and the courts more time to consider these issues. That means absolutely nothing. It is word salad. It is being feckless, spineless, all those lesses put together. You have a case before you, and what you said, you need more notice. How much? Can't tell you. Let them tell you. And then when they tell you, come back here and we'll tell you if that's too much. Well, how could it be too much if you don't even know yourselves? Think about that for a second. We think it needs more notice. Okay, how much notice you want? We don't know. Have them check it out. So right now you're having a judge somewhere who's going to define how much notice these migrants need. And whoever it is, he or she is going to pluck it out of thin air. It doesn't exist in the actual law. This is a nightmare scenario. The Supreme Court, you had it right in the palm of your hands. And you looked at this and went, we don't like it because there's not enough notice. And then you don't go the extra mile and add that sentence. Instead, you let them figure it out. How are they going to figure it out any better than you? It's not written. So literally somebody who probably hates Trump is going to pick a number out of complete air. I want you to know this as this thing unfolds. You can go read the AEA yourself. There is nothing in the law. It's already law. It's not a proposal. It's not an executive order. It is a law, and it does not say anything in the law about notice. So now the Supreme Court, they don't know, and you're asking another court who has no power to change a law. Imagine if there was a court anywhere in the land, and they were, taking up some issue like, baby removal. And they just said, well, you can't take out any baby on Mondays. Who said that? I did. I'm the judge. Good luck with that. They literally are making it up as they go because they don't want Trump to act. These people have either been threatened, they've been compromised, something. I know some of you are like, Barry, it can't be that bad. Yeah, there is. What? How can people this intelligent be this stupid? Just make something up. Come up with it. 90 days. And so whatever this Fifth Circuit Court is going to say, just so you know, be prepared for this, what's going to happen. No matter what number the other court says, somebody will be pissed off, and they'll be right back at the Supreme Court, who's going to then have to determine if that number is okay. They're going to be right back where they were today. This court's going to say 10 days, and Trump's going to either say yay or nay, or the alien people are going to say yay or nay, and they're going to fight back and forth. That's not enough time. That's too much time. That's not enough time. That's too much time. All right, we'll make it 9 days. And they're going to sue. One party will sue, and it's going to go right back to the same 9 people who couldn't determine it today. I feel like we're in a Benny Hill movie at this point. I feel like we're all being punked. And big words and long paragraphs and scrolls and they do say nothing. And I want to make sure you understand that. Not Barry making it up. Jonathan Turley said the same thing. How many days is days? And he's like, apparently not 24 hours. Well, then how much? How much notice do you want us to give these people? Wait until that happens. Wait until it goes back to, I believe, the Fifth Circuit, and they have that hearing. Oh, how long? 26 hours? Oh, no, that's not good enough. We need at least 90 days. 90 days? How about I give you 8? I think that's how it's going to be. It is the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen because they're not reading the actual law. You, at this point, could read it yourself and look at it and say, it doesn't say it. So, I don't know. It doesn't matter what they say. Here's interesting. Mike Cernovich replied to Jonathan Turley. How kind of SCOTUS to make January 6th sit in prison for 3 years before deciding whether never before is used statute applied to misdemeanor trespass, converting a low-level offense a life-destroying felony, but being sure to drop everything for, their criminal gang members. It's almost as if they're stirring the pot for civil war. They want us to just come up and just uproar. It's insane. It literally is an Abbott and Costello routine because nobody knows what this supposed number is now, yet everybody has to abide by whatever this number is until they come right back to the Supreme Court. So I think the entire thing is to just delay it, hope Trump gets out of office or something happens to him. In the meantime, it's coming. I believe it's coming. The states are going to divide, and then what happens? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The SCOTUS can't write or change laws. Exactly. You guys know it. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. They can't just arbitrarily stick a number in there. Hey, you can't drive 70 miles an hour on the highway. Where does it say that? This is sickening. Yeah, it is. It is. It will do nothing but seesaw back and forth and time for our president. So, might as well. And here's a question I have. What does he lose? If President Trump were to flip the switch and suspend habeas, which maybe that's what they're trying to force, if he were to do that, what does he lose? What's the worst that could happen if President Trump suspends habeas and moves forward? Can't impeach him. You're not going to have the votes for that. What are you going to do? And nobody has been able to answer that to me. If Trump just says and he does the whole Andrew Jackson thing, and he does suspend habeas and goes, screw it, we're going to fix this one way or another. And guess what? If you're Judge Bo Esberg and you get in the way, we're going to have to lock you up. Send him to Gitmo. What's the worst that can happen right now? Nobody else can control everything. Yeah, well, here's the worst. The worst is a couple years from now, if they could find a way to impeach him and then put him in jail. That's the worst. Good luck with that. If 67% of the American people say clear this up, get rid of these people, I don't see how, if he's got that much power behind him, that much currency, political currency, how he can't do it. Riots and looting. No, there's not going to be. I'm convinced there will not be riots and looting. There may be pockets in Washington, Seattle, San Francisco, but I can guarantee you, where else are they going to do the riots? They're not going to get those foot soldiers. It's not going to happen. Excuse me, and the last thing these people want to do, if they're rioting, is get on that train. If he's going to suspend habeas and start throwing people out, then you're getting on that train. And he may put you in the jail. Hey, listen, just pack them up, send them to Alcatraz or wherever. We're done. We're done playing. This is going to be a whole different thing. Just want you to know. If this were to happen, this isn't like Sheriff Joe. This isn't, chiefs, whatever. This is the military coming in. This is the you would see, if you didn't see the movie The Siege, go watch it. This would be the military basically coming in to certain cities that don't want to play ball and taking over. We're not going to need it down here. Our sheriffs are long been deputized and ready to go. South Florida sheriffs over by the Tampa area, Ron DeSantis has already deputized these guys. They are already part of the deportation staff. Not sure where you live, you may want to check it out. But let them, they're going to get, I shouldn't say it. It's likely these people will self-deport once they see these trucks rolling into town. And patrolling. There's only so many places they can go. And then when he cuts off remittances and says you can't send money back to Mexico. And then he goes after, people who are hot. This can get real ugly, but it's only getting ugly in small places. You believe God is in control? Yep, one day at a time. The Secret Service should have checked every inch of his home, talking about... so they're not shipping anybody out of the country right now. Oh, yeah. That's just it. If you didn't see our previous show, I had one of the assistant secretaries of Homeland Security, and she said, we're still going. Watch for yourself. Watch what happens over the weekend. See if they stop. The Democrats will scream, but they're over at that detention center. See if there's still vehicles moving in and out. Of course there will be. I bet Sheriff Grady Judd will do it already. Exactly. He just did an undercover cop operation called FAFO. Yeah. The only reason I'm saying it this way is be ready. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody, but it's obvious at this time that we're at a break glass moment, and glass is going to break. There is no other way. I don't see President Trump sitting on his hands and saying, okay, let's wait 2 years and see what happens. I just don't see it. If you see it, let me know. I just don't see that that's something he's going to do. It's time to take our country back. Enough of the shenanigans. Like you said, it's like us. We have to do it. We have to let everybody know that we're willing to do what's necessary to get this done. General Flynn as a new AG. He said he'll call him and he's ready. Somebody's asking about, Maximus was asking about Comey. Nothing. Nada. He gets to go home. Just like that, and it's over. All right, so I'm not doing a jump over tonight. This was just to show the interview with Brett Baier. I'm almost at like 7 hours or 6.5 hours of shows today. So let me just check if there's a super chat. I can tell you right now, tomorrow I will do one show. I will not be doing a show on Sunday. That's going to be the new thing. But I will be posting videos. See, that's the difference. I'm going to be posting videos, non-live videos, and taking cuts of today's show and some of the other shows, and I may, show some other things, but we'll see where that goes. So I can go spend time with the wife. All right, so let's do this. Chris Arante, sorry, Barry, I was only kidding with you about your shirt. I had no intention to upset anyone. This world needs more laughter. Sorry, your mods didn't think so. I still love you, my brother. I don't even know what you said. See, a lot of people say things and they'll email me, hey, do you know what I said that got me put in timeout? And I'm like, no. I mean, this is like really the only time where I really focus on here, because most of the time I'm looking at this thing, and you know, sometimes I bring chats over. So I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you anyway. Tommy, to get prepared in 20 days because of this SCOTUS birthright and a certain digital microscope that China is losing. Barry saying it now too. I was only ever trying to help family. Okay. Yep. Get ready. Brad, do you think it'll be like squatter laws? No, because this is federal. People were enforcing squatter laws. They were doing that on a local basis. Fume drummer, what if Trump announced that all the investors of trillions can't build in Rhino Democrat districts that think that might influence the House for 2026? I bet it would. I bet it would. And born on the 4th. Andrew Jackson, who founded the Dems jackass mascot, protested that his first 1824 election was rigged. He said, I was born for a storm, and calm does not suit me. Does it sound familiar? It certainly does. It certainly does. I did that earlier and said it was the calm before the storm, and the storm is here. I fully believe the storm is here now, especially after today's ruling on a Friday. So let's see if President Trump says anything tonight when he lands. It could be pretty interesting. If they have a gaggle on the airplane, I hope he's just going to sleep. But, you know, talk amongst yourselves. We're going to go to the after party, the small after party, not the one on Rumble. And let me know, or put in the comments, talk to each other. What are you guys feeling? Are you guys thinking that things could get, you know, pretty crazy? Are you okay with suspension of habeas and going full Andrew Jackson? All right, talk to you tomorrow. It's probably going to be about 2 o'clock.
Bye.